Namaskar everyone and welcome to the Gita Satsang. Let us start with the Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतक्लेशनाशाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे उल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः। रामानुजतया पात्रं ज्ञानवैराग्यभूषणं श्रीमद्वेङ्कटनाथार्यं वन्दे वेदान्तदेशिकं यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुग्म व्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये। So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us take up our shlokas for today. So in the previous satsang, we had started with the first shloka of the 7th chapter, and we saw how Krishna is now going to explain to Arjuna about yet another marga, that is of Bhakti Yoga. So in the second shloka of the 7th chapter, Krishna says, Jnanam teham sa vijnanam idam vakshyamyasheshatah yajñātvā neha bhūyōnyaj jñātavyam avashishyate. So he's telling Arjuna, I will declare to you fully this knowledge, along with the differentiating insight or vijnana, knowing which nothing else remains to be known. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna that I will tell you two things. One, he says, I will give you jnana and I will give you vijnana. Now, in our ordinary worldly language, when we say vijnana, we mean that as science. But here, when Krishna uses the word vijnana, he means something else entirely. So, when we say jnana in this context of this shloka, jnana refers to knowledge, but not knowledge about anything in this world. Rather, knowledge about God, knowledge about the Supreme Lord, knowledge about the Paramatma. So that understanding the nature of the Lord, understanding his qualities, all these come under the category of jnana. Then what is vijnana here? When Krishna uses this word vijnana, he means it as an insight, the ability to differentiate between things, the ability to have some extraordinary knowledge about the special qualities, the special gunas of the Lord. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, I will teach you both jnana and vijnana, and once you have learned both these from me, no other learning, no other thing is required for you. By whatever I tell you, the jnana and the vijnana part, your knowledge, your learning will be complete. So nothing else is necessary for you. So what do we mean by this jnana? Jnana refers to the basic knowledge about God. So when we say basic knowledge about God, it refers to an understanding of his greatness, of all the great qualities that the Lord has, such as Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. This is what are the qualities of the Lord. Satyam, that it is all, that he is the supreme truth. He is the Jnana. He has always existed at all times. He is Ananta, and he is what we call as the Brahma Tattva. So all these qualities which tell us about the greatness of the Lord, about the supremacy of the Lord, these are told first. What is Vijnanam? The special knowledge that not only does the Lord have all these qualities, but he is superior to us and he is different from us. So why Krishna is telling first about Jnana and then about Vijnana? Generally, even in worldly transactions, we find that if we know about somebody's greatness, then it is possible for us to give respect to them. Till we know about somebody's good qualities or their greatness, we are not able to appreciate those qualities in them. So, by telling the Jnana part first, by telling about the qualities of the Lord, the features of the Lord, which include Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, that these are his features. By telling us all that, we understand how the Lord is so much great, what is his supremacy, and then that makes us respect him. And next, Krishna tries to teach us about Vijnana, how the Lord is different from us and he is superior to us while we are inferior. So, in our worldly terms, nobody likes to be inferior to anybody, nobody likes to be dependent on somebody. But when it comes to the spiritual realm, that is the core of attaining moksha. We need to understand that the Lord is the Swami. I am the Dasa. He is the master. I am the servant. He is the owner. I am the property who is owned by him. Everything in this world belongs to him. So he is the owner and we are all his properties. He is Ananta. He has always existed. He will always exist. Whereas we take birth, we die. We are born and we die. We take different forms and we move out of those forms. So when we say we are born, we die, that means the body is born, the body dies. The Jivatma travels from one body to another. So even that is not like the Lord, because the Lord has no such bandhana. He is not having to be born. He is not having to die. He is not bound by karma, but we human beings, we are bound by our karmas. So as a result, as the fruit of our karmas, we have to enjoy certain things or we have to undergo certain punishments. So everything in our life is governed by karma, but there is no such binding for the Lord. So understanding this is going beyond an understanding of the Lord's true nature. So in jnana part, we understand about the nature of the Lord, what are his qualities. And in the Vijnana part, we understand to distinguish between him and us, that we are his servants, he is the Swami. So, in fact, the Acharyas explain how in the Vishnu Sahasranama, there is one name for the Lord. He is called as Suhrad. Suhrad means somebody who wishes well for us, somebody who is our well wisher. So, the Acharyas explain that this spirit, this name of the Lord as Suhrad, that attitude of his, that he is always wishing well for all of us, that is showing up in this shloka. There is no need for Krishna to tell all these things to Arjuna. He could have just told Arjuna. Arjuna said, I am so confused and I don't know what to do. You please tell me what I have to do. So he could have just told Arjuna that you stand up, you fight, and you take part in this war and kill all the enemies. He just had to say that much. Why is Krishna explaining all these things in so much detail? Because Arjuna had told him that whatever is good for me, you tell me that. So that is why Krishna is giving him all these types of knowledge. He's telling Arjuna about everything. He's not just giving one instruction to Arjuna and saying, do this. He is giving all the possible options, all the knowledge he is giving to Arjuna so that Arjuna may decide and take the right decision. So, what is the spirit of the Lord when he's doing all this? He wants Arjuna to learn all this. He wants good to happen to Arjuna. And although Arjuna is the nimitta here, the actual target audience is all of us, even those of us who are living in this Kali Yuga today. We were not there at the time of the Kurukshetra Yuddha, but thanks to Arjuna's questions and Arjuna's doubts, we are able to get all this thing which the Lord has told. So, out of the bhava that let good happen to Arjuna, let good happen to whoever is understanding this. The Lord is telling all these things. So, he is told about Jnana. He says, I will teach you about Jnana and Vijnana. And he is going to do that in the subsequent shlokas. Then, in the third shloka, in the next shloka, Krishna continues. Now, he has told Arjuna that I will give you all this knowledge and this specialized knowledge. So, I will tell you all these things, the differentiating insight as well as the knowledge I will give to you. Why is it that Krishna is doing this? Is it possible for everybody to know the Lord? Krishna answers this question in this shloka. So he says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschidyattati siddhaye yatatma yatatamapi siddhanam kaschin mam vetti tattvataha. So he says, among sahasreshu manusya, among thousands of men, there may be just one, there may be just a few who strive for perfection. Even among those who strive for perfection, only one may come to know me. And even among those who know me, only one perhaps knows me in reality. So here, Krishna is now peeling away one by one the layers. So we know this word Sara, it means essence, right? So here, how whenever we want something and we want the essence of something, what do? We get the essence by filtering out whatever is unwanted. So, like that, here Krishna is taking the essence of who is the person who comes to him ultimately. So, he filters human beings. So, he says, in this world, there are thousands and crores of people, human beings. So, remember that he is not talking about all the other achit vastu. He's talking about the chit. He's talking about human beings only. He's telling that thousands of men are there all over the world. Now, when he says thousands of men, he means those people who accept the Vedas as the authority and they accept that the Lord is the basic concept explained by the Vedas. So these are the Astikas. We know that there are many faiths within our country, in this land, in this Bharata Bhumi they started. There are many faiths and there are many margas. So out of all those, the majority are those who accept the Vedas as the authority. So if they say that Veda is the Pramana, if they accept that authority of the Vedas, they are called the Astika Margas. And those who do not accept this thing, that the Vedas are the authority, they do not accept the authority of the Vedas, those are called as the Nastikas. So Astika and Nastika does not refer to whether somebody believes in God or does not believe in God. Rather, it is decided based on whether they accept the Vedas as the authority or not. So when Krishna is saying that Sahasreshu, there are many Manushas, thousands of men, he says there are thousands of men who accept, who are in this Astika category, those who accept Vedas as the authority, and they accept that the entire Veda is for the purpose of glorifying the Supreme Lord. Now, out of these Astikas, there may be only 1 in 1,000 who strives for perfection. That is what we saw in the shloka. Perhaps one strives for perfection. What is the meaning of this strives for perfection? It means somebody who tries to live their life perfectly as told in the Shastras. Somebody who tries to follow whatever the Shastras are telling. That is called as striving for perfection. So, out of the thousands of people who are the Astikas in this world, there may be only 1 in 1,000 who takes this decision that yes, I am accepting the authority of the Shastras and I am going to live as the Shastras prescribe. Now, although there may be some people who accept this and they decide that yes, I want to live as prescribed by the Shastras, very few manage to actually do something to pursue this. Everybody accepts as a tattva, but how many of them manage to actually put it into practice? Very few of them. Out of those few, even fewer or only one of them succeeds in actually living a life which is prescribed by the Shastras. And out of all such people who are very rare, who actually start and practice and live their life as told in the Shastras, and who pursue some sadhana marga, only one succeeds in understanding the reality of the Lord. What is the reality of the Lord? The twofold reality. What we saw in the previous shloka, the jnana part as well as the vijnana part. Understanding that he is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, that he is the Brahman, and also understanding that he is the Swami, I am the Dasa, he is my master, I am his servant. So, understanding this happens only very rarely. Even later in the further shlokas, Krishna is going to tell little more about this aspect. He is going to say, Vasudevam Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha, that the soul who accepts that Vasudeva is everything for me, such a soul is Sudurlabha, is very, very rare indeed, he will say. But right now he is giving us a glimpse of this by saying that among the thousands of men, maybe there is some one person who strives for perfection. Among those who strive for perfection, only a few come to know me. And those who think that they know me also, actually, there may be only one person who actually, in reality, understands my true nature. So that is what he has told in the third shloka. Now he goes on to the fourth shloka. In this shloka, from shloka 4 to shloka 12, Krishna is going to explain about, he told Arjuna, right, that I'm going to tell you Jnana and Vijnana. So we said Jnana is the greatness of the Lord. So from this shloka 4 onwards to the 12th shloka, he is going to start talking about this Jnana, about his greatness. So in this fourth shloka, which we are seeing today, he says, this is a very well-known shloka of the 7th chapter, Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu khammano buddhirev cha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritirashtada. So he says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intellect, and the principle of ego, the ahankara. In this way, thus, my material nature or prakriti is divided. So if you count these things, earth, water, fire, air, ether, 5 elements, the mind 6, intellect 7, and ahankara 8. So these are the eightfold divisions of my material nature, of my prakriti. This is what he is explaining in this shloka. So let us go and understand what he means by this. Now, if we look at all these things that he's talking, they are all the Achit entities. In the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, as Swami Ramanuja has explained, we talk about 3 tattvas. We say that there are, as explained in the Upanishads, there are 3 tattvas. There is the Bhokta, there is the Bhogyam, and there is the Preritam. Bhokta is the one who enjoys. Bhogyam is the vastu which is being enjoyed, the object which is being experienced. And Preritam is the motivator, the one who is the main instigator of all this. So when we say this, whatever is without knowledge, that which is insentient, that is called as Achit. So if it may be a flower, it may be some food item, it may be this body, this sharira of ours. These are all Achit. And Achit is given to a change of form, change of nature. That which has knowledge, the sentient element, that is called as Chit. And that refers to the Atma, which just continues from one, takes one Sharira and then another Sharira. So it does not perish. So that is the Chit Tattva. And then Preritam refers to the Lord. He is the one who possesses, he is the owner of both the Chit and the Achit. So here in this fourth shloka, whatever Krishna is talking about are all the Achit aspects. He declares that all this Achit is his property. In the later shloka, he is going to talk about the Chit and so on. Now here he says that my Prakriti is eightfold. So when he says eightfold, what he means is that he's talking about these things. As it is said in the shloka, the Pancha Mahabhutas, the Panchabhutas, there are 5 of them. Pancha, there are 5. What are those 5? The earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Prithvi, Up, Tej, Vayu, and Akasha. So these are the 5 Panchabhutas. He's talking about these 5 along with Manas, mind, Buddhi, intellect, and Ahankara, ego. So that is what he's calling as the 8 parts of Prakriti. So he is telling that they are all part of my material nature. So they are nothing but my possessions. That is what he is trying to say. So if we look at it, what the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas have explained, they talk about how the Lord creates this universe. So normally when we say creation of the universe, many times we have this concept that we know there are the three Trimurtis, right? We say Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the sustainer, Shiva is the destroyer or the dissolver, like that. Now, although we say these things, Brahma is the creator, yes, but after a certain level only. The initial part of creation is done by Lord Sriman Narayana. He is the Supreme Lord and he is the one who begins the process of creation after Pralaya. At the time of Pralaya, all the Chit and Achit are attached to the Lord without any form. They are just attached to the Lord. After Pralaya is over, by the by the sankalpa of the Lord, he decides, he takes the sankalpa, he wills that now there has to be creation. And by this sankalpa, by expansion of what is called the Mula Prakriti, he creates this universe. Just like the Acharyas explained, that this is just like how a peacock, when the monsoon clouds come, when it is about to rain, what the peacock does, it opens up its feathers and we are able to see that beautiful feather spread out, right? Like that. And then later, when that train has stopped or it has passed away, then at that time it again folds it back into itself. Like that, the Lord creates this universe by expanding the Mula Prakriti, and then when it is time for Pralaya, he withdraws it all back into himself. So, what happens when he is creating? That part is called as Samashti Srishti. So, that at that point of time, this Mula Prakriti transforms into what is called as Mahan. Mahan transforms to Ahankara. And this Ahankara is in three forms as Satvika Ahankara, Rajasa Ahankara, and Tamasa Ahankara. So, from the Satvika Ahankara come the Pancha Jnanendriya, the five sense organs, the Pancha Karmendriya, the five motor organs, and the Manas, the mind. From the Tamasa Ahankara come the Pancha Mahabhutas, the Panchabhutas, what we talked already, the earth, water, fire, and so on. And the Pancha Tanmatra, which are the abilities of those five senses, what we call as Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So those are the Pancha Tanmatras. They are five. The Panchabhutas are five. This Rajasa Ahankara is just having a kind of an observer role or the kind of regulatory role. It does not become anything. So if we count all these elements together, right, if we take up the Pancha Mahabhutas plus the Mahan, okay, sorry, we take first the Mula Prakriti, which was the initial starting material, Mula Prakriti. Next, it transformed to Mahan. So Mahan is the second tattva. Then Ahankara, that's the third one. Then we have the five Jnanendriyas, the five Karmendriyas, the mind. Then we have the Panchabhutas and the Panchatanmatra. If you count all these together and you add them up, you get the number 24. So all these 24 elements are created by the Sankalpa of the Lord. This part is all done by the Supreme Lord Himself, and this part of the creation is called as Samashti Srishti. Now, after this, what happens further is Vyashti Srishti. That is entrusted to Brahma, the deity who occupies that position as Brahma, does the further part of the creation. But these 24 elements initially are created by the Lord Himself by expansion of His Prakriti. In this shloka, he has talked about only the eightfold nature of Prakriti. He has talked about the Panchabhutas, the Manas, the Buddhi, and the Ahankara. The further division of that is how Srishti takes place. So this is what Krishna explains in this fourth shloka. In the next shloka, we will see how he explains about. Here he has talked about these 8 tattvas and he says they are the Achit Vastu. Then he is going to talk about the Chit and all other more qualities of his he is going to explain in the further shlokas right up to shloka 12 of this 7th chapter. So by the Lord's grace, next satsang we will take up more of those shlokas. We have come to the end of our time for today. So let us offer Kritagnyata, let us offer gratitude at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you everybody for attending the satsang. We will meet again next Friday as usual. Namaskar. Thank you everybody.